First, why should you trace requirements? Tracing requirements is all about coverage and focus depending on which way you're reading the flow. And a matrix isn't always necessarily the best way to accomplish this, which we'll talk about as we go along. So when I write requirements, the first level of requirements is typically the business requirements. These are higher level requirements that typically stem from some business objective. Depending on the BA or the project, these will likely get broken down into stakeholder requirements, functional requirements, or both. Tracing at this level usually helps control the scope and keeps the team focused because once the project starts, people will come out of the woodwork trying to add more and more features or requirements to the project. And here, the goal is to ensure all new features meet the project's higher level business requirement, which in turn meet the business objectives. You don't want to waste a bunch of time working on things that aren't really meeting the business objectives. In practice, this typically means you list the business requirement that the lower level requirement satisfies somewhere on that lower level requirement. After functional requirements, there may be a few other layers of specification, but typically test cases trace back to functional requirements. Here, the goal is to ensure that every functional requirement has a test case to ensure it gets tested during the testing phase. This is coverage. In practice, this typically means you create a matrix and some type of spreadsheet because these things can really grow depending on the size of the project. Personally, I find traceability matrices that are maintained in Excel more trouble than they are worth. First, they are a lot of manual work to keep up to date for a business analyst or maybe a QA analyst. Second, they don't provide great insight. When I look at a matrix, I can tell that requirement A has two test cases, but that doesn't tell me how well those test cases actually test my requirements, only that there are two of them. The best case scenario is having a requirements management tool with tracing capabilities that when you need, you can spit out a matrix, but more importantly can also direct you to specific test cases when you open up a requirement or direct you back to the requirement when you open up a test case to ensure quality. And with a little elbow grease, you can create pretty cool traceability applications in Sharepoint using lists and lookups and really no additional coding. I hope that helped you understand why traceability is valuable. And I'll be sure to include a link in the description for a tutorial on using Sharepoint as a requirements management tool, as well as the link that breaks down the differences between business, functional, and stakeholder requirements if that's something you need as well.